Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how prominent Brexiteer Ben Habib is saying that Brexit is worse than being in the EU, and he wants to prove it in the Supreme Court, as if it's for the Supreme Court to comment on government policy. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So it's happened again. We've got another Brexiteer complaining that not only is Brexit not what they wanted it to be, but that it is worse than being in the EU. How many more have to do this before more people start sitting up and realising that maybe these people shouldn't have been listened to and certainly should not be listened to again? Because you look at a headline like this, I'm going to quote it. "I'm going to the Supreme Court to prove this Brexit deal is worse than remaining." And you think, if that headline had appeared a year ago in an anti-Brexit publication, like the New European, for example, and the author was Gina Miller, the Daily Express would have not only ridiculed the concept, but attacked her as being unpatriotic or worse. Yet here we are, over a year since Brexit began, in the terms that Brexiteers had been arguing for, and the Daily Express has no shame in printing a piece with exactly this headline from one of their Brexit champions. In fact, in the opening paragraph, Habib writes, and I quote, "If you think I say so because I am a Remoaner," stay classy, "think again, I am a steadfast Brexiteer." He had to say that because up until that point you might easily assume that this piece is written by a fervent pro-EU activist. Why is the Daily Express printing this stuff by EU activists, by anti-Brexiteers? You know, how many times have we said this? Once Brexit becomes reality, just watch how many Brexiteers suddenly start saying how terrible it is. But it's not Brexit that's the problem. It's the way it's being implemented. Now, what they were saying a few years ago, you know, was completely different, wasn't it? There wasn't much talk then of Brexit could absolutely work, but only if implemented in just the right way. And there was a chance that an incompetent government might actually make it worse than being in the EU. Don't remember that being said in 2016. No. It was all upsides, and any downsides were Project Fear. Any suggestion of a downside at all, any hint of a downside was Project Fear. But of course, Project Fear is now Project Here. The article also went over the second failure in the Northern Irish courts that I discussed a couple of days ago, maybe a few days ago now. He complained that the Act of Union 1800 was set aside to make way for the protocol. Now, I discussed this nonsense before, but just to point out that Habib and his merry band are complaining about here. They're complaining that Parliament has the power to change laws, even laws that are over 2 centuries old. Now, perhaps I've missed something, but wasn't one of the stated aims that Parliament should be able to decide our laws? We want Parliament deciding our laws. I mean, they do anyway. But wasn't that what they said? Parliament should decide our laws. I'm pretty sure that was the big Brexit argument. Now, this steadfast Brexiteer, as he calls himself, is trying to persuade British courts that Parliament should not be allowed to decide our laws after all. Oh, and fun fact about Ben Habib, complaining about the reality of Brexit being worse than being in the EU. Do you want to see what he was saying just 3.5 months ago? I quote, "Remainers keep telling me to own Brexit. I'm delighted to do so. Boris Johnson's deal doesn't actually deliver a proper Brexit, but it is much, much better than remaining in the EU. It's now down to those of us who own it to get Brexit done, and done properly. We will." Seems to have been a little bit of a change in position there. Now, I'm not going to mock people for changing their view on something. We should all change our views when we are introduced to new facts. But my question would be, what facts came to light to switch Habib from being convinced that the Brexit we have is not just better than being in the EU, but much, much better, to now a position 3.5 months later of it's worse? Just a few months. What's changed? Because I follow Brexit quite closely. I can't think of anything. There are some new features of Brexit, sure, that have come online, like customs controls on imports, and not necessarily being invited to important meetings of Western leaders when there's a war on our continent. But although we've only just been introduced to these realities this year, we knew they were coming beforehand. It's also worth noting what Ben Habib said about the withdrawal agreement, which includes the Northern Ireland Protocol once it had been published. Although he said he didn't like it as being the Brexit he expected, he said at the time he would vote for it, and he did vote for it, on the basis that it represented part of a genuine democratic mandate. His words. Of course, he had to do that. The referendum was not about leaving the customs union or single market, just membership of the EU. So he had to claim that the 2019 general election, which resulted in over 50% of votes going to parties promising not to leave the EU without a further referendum, was a solid mandate for going ahead with Brexit. He had to claim some sort of mandate for the hard Brexit that we got. So he claimed the 2019 general election was it. So the direction of travel has been in three parts so far. First, he says, doesn't like the withdrawal agreement, but he says it represents a genuine democratic mandate. Like I said, his words, I've not changed them at all. Not that he gets to hide behind words disparaging the agreement. You might say, yeah, but he did say it wasn't quite Brexit. No, you don't get to hide behind that, because actions speak louder than words. He voted for the agreement. That means he voted to implement every word of it, even if not all of those words are what he might have hoped for. Second leg of the journey is to once again say that Brexit is not what it might have been, but that is the mantra of every single Brexiteer outside government who wants to get out of responsibility for the consequences. However, he also says that the reality of Brexit, which at the time, he said it was a year old, so we'd already had a year's worth of consequences, was much better than being in the EU. In fact, no, much better than being in the EU. Then the third leg of the journey is a hard left towards the reality of Brexit now being worse than being in the EU. And like I say, without anything obvious changing, hard to see how you can change these positions and maintain credibility. It's very grown up to change your mind when the facts change. Very childish to do it when they haven't. But that's not the end of his hypocrisy. In this Express article, he also complains that the protocol was foisted on the people of Northern Ireland without their consent. I mean, Northern Ireland voted against Brexit in 2016 by 56% to 44%. That's a wider margin than Brexit won across the whole of the UK, or across the parts of the UK that were allowed to vote, because we have to bear in mind very many millions of people living in the UK were not allowed to vote, including people who have to nonetheless deal with the consequences, but most especially I'm thinking here of people born this century. They got no say at all. They've got to live with it now for the rest of their lives, potentially. It won't actually be, because we're going back. But can you believe that? Northern Ireland votes to remain, but Habib doesn't care about that. The UK voted to leave, therefore the whole of the UK must leave, including Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland has to be pulled out of the EU, even though it didn't vote for it, because the UK as a whole voted for it. But Northern Ireland has a unique structure in its society which requires it to be basically seamlessly bound to the rest of Ireland. I know, we'll implement this protocol to more sort of make it work. No, the people of Northern Ireland did not vote for that, so you can't foist it upon them. I mean, inconsistency of thought is common amongst people. We're all guilty of it from time to time. And those who think themselves immune to it engage in it the most. But there is inconsistency of thought and raging hypocrisy. Like, Habib's positions are so out of kilter when you put them side by side, it is impossible to see him as credible at all. And yet he is still given platforms on national television where they pretend he is debating a point. And I've said it before, our society would evolve very quickly indeed if we took the view that only intelligent experts should ever be allowed to debate topics on television. And do you know what? If you cannot find two intelligent experts on a topic to disagree with each other, maybe, just maybe, there isn't a difference of opinion. But there we are. I will just add, despite the headline about going to the Supreme Court to prove that Brexit is worse than being in the EU, there is not one word of explanation in this rambling collection of ill-connected words that even comes close to pretending how he will achieve it. And even if he does somehow persuade Supreme Court justices to agree that yes, Brexit is shit, no explanation as to what he expects them to do about it. Because if judges could order governments to stop being shit, the Conservatives and the likes of Ben Habib would never have been anywhere near political power. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.